Sorry, I should have asked.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, how's it going? I get the awesome job of waking everybody up after their food comas. So thank you for coming here to listen to a little bit of my experience of how to raise money and how to turn your idea on a napkin to a duffel bag full of cash, because eventually that's exactly what you need. Or you might want to take a wire instead of a duffel bag, but that's exactly what you need in order to grow and scale your company. I grew up in Santiago, Chile. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I went to business school at Stanford, and I'm the founder and CEO of Proven, and we are a company that helps people apply to jobs using their smartphone. So before Proven came about, it was very difficult to apply to jobs using a smartphone. We're now the largest standalone app in both app stores for people to apply to jobs, and mostly jobs that are for people who are not on LinkedIn. I've raised about $4 million for Proven. I've had the fortune of working with some amazing investors, including Mitch Capor, who was here earlier. I also have some other folks like 500 Startups and Founder Collective, who are more in the early stage, and then also Andreessen Horowitz and Greylock, who are some of the later stage folks. So I have, over the course of my entrepreneur career, pitched about 175 times, and still counting. So one of the things we'll talk about is kind of the angle of attack to make this happen, as well as some of the tactics that can help you in the process. So the bottom line is that to turn your idea from a napkin into a duffel bag full of cash, the first thing that you need is product. Without product, there's nothing. It used to be that you were able to walk into a room and say, I am going to build something. Today, the cost of actually building something is so low that if you don't have product, if you just have slides, that's not going to work. There was a time in Silicon Valley when that did work. That's no longer the case. You also need growth. You cannot say, as Mitch pointed out correctly in his email earlier, you cannot say this is going to grow. We have you'll have to have the early signs. And the numbers don't have to be huge, but they have to be relatively bigger than the numbers that you had before. And the last thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is that without those two, you can't go anywhere, but you have to ask for the order. So you have to persistently toe the line between being persistent and being annoying. Stay on the persistent side, but really test that and try go out there and actually ask for the order to make sure that people are paying attention to you. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story that's recent for me that's not related to Proven about fundraising. As you can see right now, I'm relatively clean-shaven. It's been a couple of days, but that was me about 5 days ago. So that was me about 5 days ago for Movember. And Movember, as some of you may know, is a worldwide charity that raises money for prostate and testicular cancer. My father, during the darkest time of our company for Proven, was affected with prostate cancer. It was a very, very difficult time for me about a year and a half ago, and so every year I undertake this fundraising campaign to raise money for awareness and research for men's health. I raised so far this year about $2,400, so I literally just shaved this thing about 3 days ago. Looked like a squirrel on the upper lip. But this goes to illustrate that in order to raise money, first you need product. You have like the shape, but the product. You need growth, obviously, having the growth of the mustache really helps. And the third thing that you need is to ask for the order. So if you want to help me out and donate to Movember, there is the link. It's mobro.co/Pablo Fuentes, and help me raise more money for men's health. Let's talk a little bit more about product. So why is product important? You need to have something that people want. Now, for these guys, it was something that happened to be not legal. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the series Breaking Bad, but that is crystal meth. I do not advocate that, but they did, however, get that one part of that right, which is that they had something that people wanted. And again, we are in an era right now where with things like Amazon Web Services, and you have it used to be that in order to start a company, you needed to have a closet full of servers and a closet full of computers. Now you can do everything very easily, and again, there's things like Startup Weekend and different accelerators and ways when you can get a product. You need to have a product and have something that people want. Otherwise, you're not going to have the credibility. And again, this is to Mitch's point early, to get those meetings. And the email that Mitch showed talked about MVP. You need to have that MVP to show. Everything else comes second, okay? So I was like, I don't know what my company name is. Bullshit, I don't care. I don't know, like about this or that. Until you have a product, it really doesn't matter. So your logo, your colors, all kinds of things that feel really good, like you're actually doing something, they don't matter until you have a product that's working, and then all those things can take care of themselves later. Think about Airbnb. That is the most horrendous company name in the world, and that is a really like not that good-looking a logo, and it doesn't matter. They're valued billions of dollars because they had a product that really worked, and they iterated their way into something that people really wanted. So everything else comes second. The next thing is growth. You need to create a sense of urgency with your investors and the feeling that the train is leaving the station. Now, this can be real, like or this can also be a perception that you help craft in terms of like, look, I already have, the real part is like A and B committed, and I am talking to 7 other people. Now, the expectations that you may have for how many of those 7 other people will be committed might vary, but you definitely want to create this sense that the train is leaving the station and that you're growing. And again, the absolute numbers don't matter nearly as much as the trend. Now, you may say to yourself, like, well, I have this product for like hotels and only 5 hotels have signed up, and that's like a low number. You pick the metric. It's rooms. It's number of dollars in the door. It doesn't matter. Give me a graph that looks up and to the right for your traction, and that's what you need to show with your product. All right. The first 2 things are absolutely essential, but now with those 2 things, you can still fail if you don't execute what I call the Shakira principle. So what is the Shakira principle? Does anybody have a guess as to what the Shakira principle is? Hips don't lie. All right. So what does hips don't lie mean? It means that hips don't lie. You need to be able to stand in front of your potential investors and communicate with your hips, with your shoulders, with everything about you that it's a really bad idea not to invest in me. Now, that's not faked. That's going to be real because you're going to have the product and you're going to have the growth. You're going to have real traction. But it also cannot be that you're here, in the corner telling like, yeah, we have this amazing product and it's a lot, thousands of people are using it. And you have to be able to stand in front of people and say, I have an amazing product. More and more people are using it. The train is leaving the station, and it's just a terrible idea. Not to say it, but communicate with every cell of your body that it's a terrible idea for them not to invest in you. That is the Shakira principle, which leads me into the next point, that raising money is a lot less of a logical endeavor than it is like an 8th grade dance. So there's a lot of like really weird little dynamics, and a lot of these things are what Mitch was talking about earlier, which are these like implicit dynamics and like how the dance is supposed to go. And at the end of the day, people invest in people. So you're going to have to charm people, and people are going to have to like you, not only like you, but also, again, believe in your growth, believe in your product, and have believed that, because you planted yourself with your hips and asked for them and asked for the order. But there's going to be a lot of herd mentality, for example. So there's a lot of things like people will ask you things like, well, who else is invested? And inside your head, you're like, well, if you believe in this, if you like this, like why are you asking me that? Like, how does that matter? The reality is that there is a dynamic that does exist, and you do have to convince. You'll find that your first investor, this is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 efficiency, the first investor is going to take 80% of your efforts, and the 80% of the other investors are going to take 20% of your efforts. Getting that first investor, that social proof that is going to tell other people in the dance that it's okay to dance with you, that really matters. So be really aware of that, and it's part of how the way the game is played. And again, you're going to get to be accepted at the dance by having product, growth, and asking for the order and getting that first investor. How many of you have heard of the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell? There's some dubious science, but there's a really interesting idea there, which is the fact that people have instant judgments and reactions to ideas very, very quickly. So there's buying questions which are and. And you as an entrepreneur, you'll start to recognize those, like, oh my God, what else could this be applied to? Like, oh, I have this telecommunication product for ants. Oh my God, would cockroaches and crickets also use this? Those are and questions. And then like but questions or something like, oh, I've heard ants are using less and less. What's the total size of the ant market? I've heard that ants are really not using as much telecommunication as they used to. So in my experience, with 175 pitches and counting, people who ask and questions are significantly more likely, not guaranteed, significantly more likely to become investors than people who ask but questions. People who ask non-buying questions, I have a very, not a non-existent, but a very low rate of converting those people into investors. A lot of them will ask you like, oh, this is really interesting. However, I'm going to need a market projection and a full market study and the latest Gartner research on this market. Bullshit. Like at the end of the day, those people are not buyers. They're not people who are going to. So be polite, be graceful, but realize that you need to spend your time and your effort, which is precious, on the people who are actually asking buying questions, asking and questions, not asking the but questions. A few specific tactics. So I hate bullet points on slides, but I am going to show you a few bullet points of things that I've learned along the way. And again, this is by no means a comprehensive list, just a list of a few things that I've learned along the way. One is, again, very few words on your slide. The focus is on you. This is the you show. Having like a bunch of data and a bunch of studies and a bunch of footnotes and a bunch of stuff, the only thing that guarantees is that people are going to be reading that as opposed to paying attention to you. There's a reason why I'm not putting up all the things that I'm saying into bullet points. I'm standing here and I'm planting my hips in front of you because I believe in my ideas and I want you to listen to what I'm saying, not to what the slides say. So that's something that I see a lot of, and a lot of people that have very high quality but misdirected training, or not misdirected, but like rather not applicable training. So like people who were consultants in McKinsey or worked in an investment banking, like, oh, my boss, if I didn't have that footnote, like they would have had me for lunch. Well, you're no longer in investment banking. You're slanging new ideas for stuff that has not been built. Welcome to the game. So the focus is on you. Steve Jobs never used any bullet points. Next one is handwritten thank you notes. If you remember one thing that I said today, other than the Shakira principle, is handwritten thank you notes. Nobody freaking does them. Nobody does handwritten thank you notes. And the fact that you deliver handwritten thank you notes to all the people that you pitch will make you stand out. Furthermore, what I do, and this is an extra tip, an extra secret, is I actually write handwritten thank you notes to everybody, including the assistant who helped me set up the meeting, all the way to the partner of the VC firm or the partner of the angel firm, whoever it is that is a decision maker, and you put it in a FedEx envelope and you address it to the senior partner. Why is that? Oh, Pablo, it's $20, it's expensive. FedEx envelopes have important things in them, legal documents, awards, like things that matter. FedEx envelopes tend to find themselves to the top of the inbox pile of important person. So what's going to happen? Important person will open like, oh, Pablo took the time to write a thank you note. And people remember that stuff. Years later, I still get at Andreessen Horowitz people in the hallways commenting like, thank you for that thank you note that you sent me, which is freaking 2 years ago. So people do remember that stuff. And again, if you remember one thing, make it that. The next one is a numbers game. Be patient. I've pitched 175 people. Don't get discouraged. Just keep doing it. Some people just won't like you. Some people won't like what you're selling. Some people don't like your industry. That's okay. Just be gracious and continue to pitch and continue to again put your foot forward, and don't let the fact that the last 10 people said no in any way, shape, or form affect your execution of the Shakira principle. Plant your hips and ask for the order. The last one is use AngelList. It's a very good resource. Naval Ravikant and his people have really done an amazing job with this. It works a lot better when you already have a lead, that 80-20 principle I talked to you about earlier. So if you already have a lead, it's a lot easier to raise money from AngelList because the social proof aspect matters quite a bit. Really quickly about reading investors and coffee. Investors love to meet up for coffee, and there's somebody here in this audience that I had a conversation with, I won't mention her name, but when she was at the NUMI Accelerator about coffee and about like investing, but this person has demonstrated all this interest in they're a really big name investor and they want to have coffee. It's free for investors to have coffee. Investors, all they do all day is have coffee with interesting people, and they have that's literally their job. Within that coffee, they're gonna make some judgments about you and things like that. But at the end of the day, unless you're ready, you have your product ready, your growth is ready, and everything else, the only thing that's gonna do is make you feel like a fake good. That's gonna be like, oh, I feel good because somebody told me that my stuff is interesting. You're not special. They told that to the last 17 people they had coffee with that week. And they're also investors are awesome at keeping doors open. They do not want you to go be the next Google and for them to have been the one firm that missed out on that investment. So even if they they don't like what you're doing or they don't like you, they're going to tell you, oh, this is really interesting. I would really love to fund this when you have more traction. Which leads me to the next point, that everything except for yes is no. Repeat, everything except for yes is no. Oh, send me more information. Let's meet 2 months from now. No. Oh, this is really interesting. Like, I want to meet your entire team and then have a conversation. Like, no. The people who want to write checks. And you need to ask for that order. And again, lo cortés no quita lo valiente. You need to be brave, right? You need to go up there and stand there. But at the same time, you can walk away and say, you know what, I am not currently fundraising. And that's okay. Because early on, you're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, including product management, including coding, selling your startup, all kinds of things. So every single meeting that you have is a huge shift of focus for you away from building your business. So it's okay for you to say, no, I'm not currently fundraising. I would love to stay in touch with you. But these bullshit coffees where people ask you like off cycle to go like have coffee to do things, unless you know that they're willing to write a check, and unless you know that you have your product, your growth, and you're ready to plant yourself to a Shakira principle, it's not the right time, and it costs you a lot more than it costs them. This is a very asymmetrical game until you have so much growth and traction that they're all chasing you. All right, is it right for you? It's not right for everybody. You lose a lot of freedom. You lose a lot of ownership. You give up board seats. Ask yourself, is this something that you want to do? Is this a venture-backable business, and am I getting the right kind of investors for this business? I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, a couple minutes. But the last thing, I want to give you a few resources. Google these 4 things. Dave McClure, Startup Viagra, he has a great presentation, how to structure a pitch deck that is appropriate for venture investors and how to sell them. A lot of times people put all kinds of like odd like market size things up front that are absolutely not the right way to do it. Most people are going to make up their minds within the first 3 minutes of whether or not they're going to invest in you. So make damn sure that the most important things, the most exciting things, the product, the growth, all that is in the first 3 minutes of the presentation, because otherwise you're not going to get the money. Paul Graham, so Dave's one of my investors in full disclosure. Paul is not, I'm not a Y Combinator company, I was a 500 Startups company, but Paul is very, very clever, and he's recently wrote a post that's very good about fundraising. Naval Ravikant, he founded Venture Hacks before AngelList, and he has a lot of really good fundraising hacks. There's a couple of interviews that'll show up if you Google that. And then the Dress Rush pitch deck, I said the pitch deck that made the rounds around the world. It was basically lauded as one of the best pitch decks ever. It was a 500 Startups company that did a really good job in a very simple web page-like manner of pitching their business. Now, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I train 4 times a week and do competitions. This last weekend, I trained with Babalu, who's fought for the UFC light heavyweight title at UFC 94. And he told me that I should show this picture and have him, have you threaten that he would come kick your butt if you didn't donate to Movember. I said that wasn't a good idea, but instead, what I would do is anybody that donates $50 to Movember, I'll review your pitch deck, and I'll do a 20-minute call. So that is the address if you want to do that. And I will take any questions in however much time we have left. Sir. And if you do donate the $50, just put your email address in the comments, and here, yeah, you got it. And I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm Charleston Bell, President and CEO of Bound Innovations. I have a quick question. So how do you stay on the right side of the line between being persistent and being annoying? I'm in the fundraising round right now, and I always have that question where I ask myself, is this the one email that's going to make them not respond and whatnot? So what sort of things do you do to stay on the persistent side?
A lot more art than science. I would also say that you have to take risks. So you will know when you cross the line. It'll be obvious by people's responses, and sometimes you have to mess up. My take is, it's like if you're not, so fundraising is a lot like dating, right? Now, if everybody that you ask out is saying yes to you, you're probably not taking enough risks, right? So, figure out where that line is and figure out where it is that people are, it's much more art than science. One thing that is more science is like don't send empty emails, right? Stuff that says nothing except for the exact same thing that you said the last time, except for like you said you'd get back to me. So be artful in the sense of give them new information, project new, I don't know, do you have a new customer? Do you have another committed investor? Is a window closing? And, is there more of this like train leaving the station effect? And again, figure it out, but I have been far from perfect at it. And I would suggest, and again, use this at your own risk, that being perfect at it means you're not trying hard enough and not going, and sometimes you have to mess up. But then, I would not suggest that everybody follow that advice. But.
Hi, Pablo. I'm sorry, did you say to meet the VCs for coffee when you have the product and growth, or can you do that beforehand?
Yeah, no, you can do it. So my only point is this. Having coffee is free for VCs, and it wastes a lot of your time. So unless you're in a fundraising process where you're ready to go and talk about investment, you're like, here's my product, here's my growth. If you already have that, if they're already answering your email, when you have more product and more growth, they're not going to not answer your email, right? Like people have this like sort of like, oh my God, like I'm gonna lose this kind of thing. Like if I don't take this coffee now, they're never gonna talk to me again. Well, here's the reality. If you have X today, and tomorrow you have X plus 1, they're going to be just as likely or more to respond to that email. But if you are not ready today, and you know you're not ready, and you're not in the middle of a fundraising process, the cognitive cost to you, which means like scheduling the meeting, changing like whatever, traveling, driving to wherever you need to drive, prepare a pitch deck, think about like, obsess about what you're going to say to this investor not to mess it up. All that stuff, which is completely normal as part of a fundraising process. Unless you're ready, it's a waste of your time.
So I should be taking an angel out to coffee instead?
I would say take nobody out to coffee until, well, it's not necessarily true, but don't limit the amount of investor coffees that you have until you're ready to talk to them, until you have the product and the growth and you're like, now. Gotcha. Because if you already have their ear, you can have the introduction, and I do this all the time. People who say like, oh, you should meet Pablo and all this. And I'm like, you know what, thank you so much for the introduction. At this moment, we're heads down on product. I would love to reach out to you when we are fundraising. And because this is a freaking eighth grade dance, they actually like that more. They actually are like, oh, okay, well, he's really heads down on product. Like, and then if you come back with more after that, they're not going to say like, oh, no, you know what, you were heads down on product before, so I'm not going to take this coffee. Like, they'll take it, and you're going to be much more prepared, and it's not going to waste your time.
Great, thanks.
Does that make sense? Awesome. All right, maybe we have one more, or we can wrap it up, and please donate to Movember. Awesome, thank you.